And baby, I'm TFC till I die.
Hello and welcome back to Toronto Till I Die, the Toronto FC fan show. And what a difference 6 goals can make in a game. The vibes were down, everybody was down, and then the tonic for Reds fans, you go away to Montreal and you smash your rivals on their patch. Happy days for Toronto FC fans. It's a good vibes show. Yay! We'll talk all things Toronto FC's away day victory in Montreal. We won't go too deep into it because let's be real here. Let's just have some fun with this. This was a good day for Toronto FC. So we'll get into a bit of that, and then maybe we'll get a little forward looking to Nashville on the weekend. But of course, with me is the co-host Michael Singh, back from SoCal, Southern California, soaking in rays. How you doing?
Yeah,
man?
it was nice. It was nice to get away, but still managed, as always, to find a way to throw on some Toronto FC while I was down there, and very nice surprise. I don't know what I was expecting for Toronto FC and heading into Montreal. Obviously, Canadian Championship disappointment. They're away from home again. We all know about it's well out there, and if you didn't know before, you do know now all about Montreal's struggles this campaign. So there was something there, but to do that, I mean, a 6-1 annihilation of Montreal, a bit of rivals, that's a great feeling for Toronto FC fans and Toronto FC who have needed a game like this. I mean, there was one last season, and I think if you look back at it, that was probably the highlight of Toronto FC's campaign last year. So once again, they find a way to do something like that, and that was such a, like I said, just a sweet feeling to put up 6 in Montreal this time. Just one of the best games, I think, in club's history.
Yeah, and shout out the away supporters who made the trip
Seriously.
this time. It's one of those things where you want to give them a little bit of reward for putting up with a lot over the last couple of weeks, but to get a performance like that against your rivals away from home. Where if teams I don't want to say everything was stacked up against them, but definitely the vibe was, you come out of this game without a win, and things get really dark, I think. But, we stave the clouds off for another week, and TFC get to bask in this. And let's talk a little bit about this game because, when you go into it, these are two teams that are, let's face it, they're just not good right now. And you're talking about what, third bottom and bottom of the Eastern Conference. In terms of these teams, like you said, they played each other a couple weeks ago in the Canadian Championship. A draw, a 2-2 draw, loss on penalties for TFC. But beyond just what was on the pitch, the vibe between the two supporters, the vibe between the fans in both markets seems to be pretty down on both their teams. And like just watching, on Apple TV, like usually at least for a Darby game, Stade Saputo usually gets quite filled for a Darby game, but there were large pockets of empty seats for that game, which is a little surprising for me because, again, even no matter where Montreal is in the table or where TFC is in the table, generally that game draws for them, but not on Saturday. It was it was not a full building in Montreal.
And probably a good thing for Montreal fans, because showing to that would have been probably even more painful than that New England Revolution game for TFC fans a couple of weeks back. I mean, from a TFC perspective, I can't remember. I went to that game, and I can't remember ever feeling this way, but it was 20 minutes in. I was like, I couldn't wait to get out of there. It was brutal, but you know what? We're not talking about that. That's what I mean when I say, Montreal fans probably feel the same way, and what you're kind of alluding to there. It's a dark time for for soccer here in Eastern Canada. Not much else to say about it, but at least TFC were able to come out and come ahead at least out of this one.
Yeah, for sure. And look, you think about the start of that game for TFC, and maybe the first sort of 10 minutes, Montreal, they were controlling the game. They were controlling pace of play. They had the possession. They had the ball in the net within 4 or 5 minutes. Now, Jacopo Baroni being rightly called offside for the goal, but you got that little uh-oh feeling within the first 10 minutes with Montreal really pressing and really, changing a little bit of the way they play. And I think it caught TFC off guard. I think Robin Fraser talked about it in his post-game comments.
Mhm.
And, when you look at that, you kind of looked at, Lazar Stevanovic having to make his first MLS start in a derby away. Somebody that you think, oh, maybe they started attacking, and let's be real, they did try to attack that wing to start the game. But, sometimes you need a little bit of luck. And you get a little bit of luck with Baroni being offside, and then the Tyrese Spicer goal kind of comes out of nothing. What was your view on the Spicer goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of magic, I think, from Tyrese Spicer. Like, he has the ability to make game-breaking plays, and you're completely right where the first 10-ish minutes, it was all Montreal. I think even 20 minutes in, you're looking at like 70-30 possession for the home side there. So Tyrese Spicer really against the run of play early on makes incredible run, shows his pace, the poise to side foot that into the upper half of the goal, short side. An incredible finish from Spicer, which we've seen glimpses of even when he was with Trinidad and Tobago. He has the ability to get him behind it and finish, and I think that's exactly what we saw. And that play was really the start of Toronto FC's afternoon. And if it wasn't for that play, there actually is potential. We're talking about this game in a completely different light, completely different manner. So in every word that in every meaning of the word, it was a game breaking play by Tyrese Spicer to get the goal going.
Yeah, and look, it was decent setup play. I think Ola Brynhildsen held the ball up and got the ball down the line, and just being able to have that, as you say, that dynamics and that burst of pace to get the ball around a bad challenge. Like, that's somebody went off their feet. They probably should have stayed on their feet. But once he's in on goal, yeah, exactly. Like, he was lightning, and again, to your point, the composure to kind of slow himself down as he's about to hit the ball and really get that up and over Simone Braza. A really, really great finish. And again, a player that you can see starting to put it more together. You just wonder like, where is his best sort of fit on the team in terms of, do you play him as a wing back? Is he a winger? Now Robin Fraser now kind of has a good problem with, two guys on the left that could potentially play in Spicer and Corbiano, and we'll get into his contributions to the game in a moment. But then the big sort of moment that changes this entire game. Let's be real here. Like, we're a positive vibe show today, but we can't get around talking about Joel Waterman sending off in, like, I think about the 24th minute. A really great play by Ola Brynhildsen to turn him because he was gone. And then Waterman brings him down. What was your view on that? Because I initially thought definitely a foul, but I thought there were other defenders that were kind of ahead of him and could possibly stop Brynhildsen. But, looking at the replay, denial of a goal scoring opportunity for sure. But just want to get your thoughts on the sending off.
Yeah. I mean, first off, I think you mentioned Lazar off the top of the show. Another great pass into Ola Brynhildsen there.
Yeah,
I think it was a fantastic read from the left-hand side to ping it into your striker. We saw, his ability to read the game. Just quickly on Lazar. I mean, we've seen a lot of times defenders come in through Toronto FC, maybe have momentum, but they're always a little bit sporadic, shaky. A little bit over anxious to make plays and make a difference. Like, Luke Singh, Rocco Romeo, even a little bit Julian Dunn. The list kind of goes on and on, where young defenders have come in and tried to, specifically center backs. I know he's playing more on the left-hand side this game, but they look their age, I guess is the best way I can say that.
Yeah.
Lazar is composed. Like, he is him on the ball. I mean, not being afraid to take that extra touch, I think is huge for someone who's 17, 18 years old. I mean, that's a talented, young, up-and-coming defender. And we haven't been able to say that quite often, if at all, really, at Toronto FC in a very long time. So a really special player, I think TFC have in Lazar Stevanovic. Circling back to the red card, yeah, great turn by Ula. Caught Joel Waterman, obviously cheating a little bit. Yeah, I was with you. When the tackle first happened, I wasn't sure. And obviously you see Ula's reaction. It doesn't seem like he's just going for a yellow card. He's not calling for just a yellow. And when you think about it, it is. It absolutely is. It's a red card. It's a right call. And the referee got it right. And especially once you go red at that point, there's no way VAR can intervene and make that a yellow. I think it was the right decision. I'd be interested if the referee went yellow first. Would VAR have intervened and turned that into red? It was close. I don't know. But regardless, credit to Ula for being able to put the pressure on Joel Waterman in a game that's, he's 1-0 down, to make a tackle like that. Because you go 2-0 down, it's tough. It would be tough to come back, especially for a Montreal team that's not scoring goals.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's, a little bit of mark on Joel Waterman, the type of season he's having. This is somebody who, if probably at the start of the season you're thinking, hey, this is a guy's probably in contention to make the Gold Cup roster for the national team. And I think he is on the 60-man preliminary that got dropped today. But I wonder if he actually does end up going, because that was
great.
Yeah, no, he did not look great, and he has not looked great this season. But his misfortune is Toronto FC's game, because going out of that, basically, as you had mentioned, the field was tilted pretty much, I think 70-30 for Montreal at that point. And then the game changes and the field completely tilts the other way around, and TFC take full advantage of a man up. And here's the thing, I think if this was another sort of normal season, or a season where TFC is doing a little bit better, we're probably not as surprised about that. But considering that the way that TFC has played this season, and we've seen an example of them being a man up, albeit a shorter amount of time at RSL, and not be able to control the ball at all. Now, granted, they game planned a little bit and was trying to hold on to a lead at that point, but in this one, they put their foot on the ball and really started to play. And you saw some of the improvement, I think, that Robin Fraser keeps saying is coming week after week. And you, as a TFC fan, sometimes you're feeling like you're being gaslit by Robin Fraser, because you're like, where is this improvement that you're talking about? Because I don't feel to see it. I think this was maybe the week where he got to at least say, hey, I told you so. There is some improvement in this team.
Yeah, sure.
It's got an asterisk. It's got an asterisk beside it.
A big one. I mean, look, it's DC and it's Montreal.
Yes.
Right. But there was absolutely improvement. I mean, let's talk about Ula for a second. Right. He's had a well-documented tough time so far in his Toronto FC career. I mean, they have him on loan. They have the option to make it a permanent transfer. I believe that transfer would make Ula then a designated player next season. And through the first 10 appearances of his TFC career, you would have said no way. Right? There's no.
He's had flashes, but not like nothing that would make it a slam dunk. You take up the option.
Right. He looked like a DP this game. He looks a lot more confident. He makes plays on his own, which I think is absolute like 101 for a DP in Major League Soccer. You've got to be able to make plays on your own. And Ula, in arguably one of the toughest positions to do that, is finding ways to buy that extra second on the ball for TFC. In a lot of ways, dozens of seconds if he's able to break a tackle or drive into open space the way that he showed against Montreal, and like you said, flashes throughout the rest of the season. Right, he's at times you find him isolated, and it's listen, it's tough being a striker playing with Frederrico Berneski and Lorenzo Insigne. It just is. We've seen a number of strikers kind of come through, and some strikers who are talented and come through the ranks and still not be able to be as effective. But we see Ula starting to win some of that trust from, let's say, the Italians. And I think, yeah, I think that was more of the Ula I think TFC thought they were getting. So, he came out and said that I believe he had to play on painkillers through the first couple matches of this year, and it sounds like some of that is behind him. So if he can continue to put in shifts like this one moving forward, I mean, who knows? Who knows what the end result will be for Ula? Will he be a Toronto FC player in the future? But if they get this version of Ula, I mean, I think they're delighted. But I mean, time will tell. Let's see if he can stay healthy first off, and let's see if he can continue to put in these performances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is sort of the guy we expected to see. I think and also I think you saw even in those sort of 10 appearances where okay, there's no goal. He's got to come off early, or he's coming on late as a sub. You see those flashes, right? You see the flashes of somebody who could make the runs, the flashes of somebody who can be physical and hold the ball up. And he just needed a bit of a break. There's one of those guys you could just tell he needs a goal just to get himself really going. And look, Turts wants to talk a little bit about Maxi Dominguez here, and we could talk about both in sort of the same sentence, because I think this was probably the best performance from Maxi Dominguez since he's become a Toronto FC player, and they both hook up for the third goal. Yes, we are going to talk about Frederrico Berneski and Theo in a moment, but I think those two hooking up on a goal is... Look, it's not the answer per se for TFC, but it's a positive sign that your two lone players, that you're probably of the lone players, you're thinking, okay, these are the guys maybe we keep as pieces next year, are able to hook up on a really intelligent build-up goal on that third goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think on the Apple broadcast, they were saying that Robin Fraser had come out and said that Frederrico Berneski needs to be a little bit more unselfish in some of his plays, which I think is absolutely true. Trust his teammates a little bit more, and that's exactly what Fede does here. I mean, releasing Maxi Dominguez, and then Dominguez was even more unselfish than Berneski. Like, he had every right. Shot. He had every right to go for goal there, and yet he decides to, as a true, let's call him number 10, even though we'll get into this a little bit, he was playing more as an 8 this last game. He decides to look for that pass, and strikers love that. They feast off that, and Ula, to his credit, was making the run. He was ready for that finish, and it was a good way to kind of get off the mark, and let's see where it goes from there. But yeah, circling back to Maxi Dominguez, I think you're right. It was probably his best performance, just his second start, surprisingly, for Toronto FC, and he does so in the position I guess they usually play Oso in.
Yes.
And there's a lot of similarities in their game. I think they're both incredibly hard workers. I think they're both willing to get their foot stuck in. I mean, Maxime Dominguez, he won 10 of 13 ground duels in this match, and I think you saw that he was sort of all over the place. 7 tackles. More importantly, and I think this is so important for someone who's playing in the middle of the park, he completed 95% of his passes on the day. Right, he only gave the ball away 3 times in the entire match playing in the middle of the park. I mean, that is exactly what you want from a guy who, when you're playing beside Davy Flores, when you're playing with the Italians in front of you, you want that guy to be that little bit of a facilitator, combination of a disruptor too, and that's exactly what you got for Dominguez, especially a guy who can cover a lot of ground. And then you add in the class and the quality at the end, where he's able to pick up that assist, a big assist before the end of the first half. I mean, that's all you can ask for out of Maxime Dominguez. So excited that he found a role. Obviously, Oso is getting back fit. He's close to returning, apparently. We'll see exactly what kind of role that leaves Dominguez in, but he clearly showed that I think on the right day against the right team, he can hang and be a contributor for this team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk about them. The two men that bagged the braces in this game, Frederrico Berneski and Theo Corbianu. Quickly on Berna, look, he was able to feast a little bit once he got a little bit of extra space with a man down. The first goal, well taken, got it on his right. It took it with his right, which is a bit rare for him, and snuck it. I think it was deflected, but still, great goal on that one. And then, of course, everybody's going to talk about the second one, which was just vintage Berneski, right? Shift, get it on the left, get it at the top of the box, and he just cracked this one into the side netting. And there's not much you can say other than that, right? Like, great goal. In a lot of ways, again, like, kind of paced the team in terms of the attack. They were looking for him constantly. To your point about Robin Fraser earlier, saying he needs to trust in his teammates a little bit more, did a bit of that. But once the hat trick was on, he was going for the hat trick. There were times where he could pass it up, and he was just like, nah, I'm going to go for this hat trick.
Yeah, and I think he's settling a little bit more into that. It's almost like a secondary striker sort of role. Obviously, more of a striker playing off the right-hand side where he's able to find the ways to cut in. And I think just off his first goal, I think that also sets up his second goal because he showed that he's willing to go right. You can tell, I believe it might have been Luca Petrasso, shout out former TFC Academy player, who was defending him 1v1. And you can tell Petrasso's waiting for him to go left. And Berno reads that and takes it right and has the half step, and he's able to finish, which, by the way, again, another brutal goal by Breza. But again, Berneski willing to go right, put defenders on their heels. I think the rest of that match, even Petrasso, who has found himself isolated 1v1 versus Berna quite a bit during this game, and second time he's able to cut in and have one of those finish. I mean, look, this is the Berneski I think Toronto FC fans have seen all year, except for the fact he's able to get on the score sheet and actually convert one of these, half dozen chances that he finds ways to create himself every single game. So I think really that was the main difference. I mentioned him trusting his teammates a little bit more. Yeah, we saw some of that. But for me, it's just more so the fact that the ball finds the back of the net. And when, he's doing that plus everything else that he adds, I mean, that's all you can ask for out of Frederrico Berneski. At the very least, you're looking at a 6-7 out of 10 performance from Berneski every single game.
Yeah, and I think once he historically, we've sort of learned about him, once he kind of hits the net once, twice in a game, then that can sort of spur at least a block of play where he's really good and he's really on in terms of his form. So we'll see sort of how he carries that into the next couple of games. But I'm interested in talking a little bit more about Theo and his kind of evolution, and Gord here just sort of brings up a comment. When he gets his chances, he's taking shots, yes, but I think there's been a little bit of an evolution since he's come to the club. And look, fairness, he's needed time to settle back in at TFC. I think that's fair to say. I think he at the beginning of the season, he was rough and a bit rusty, and you could kind of tell in terms of his decision making, and we talked about that quite a bit on this show. But I think he's starting to find a little bit of a groove and a little bit of confidence in the team, and that's kind of showing in a way that I'm not sure I expected in terms of just goals, right? And in terms of being goal dangerous like that. But he pots 2 today, and 2 very confident goals. That's the thing. The first goal, a little broken play off a block from a Berneski shot, but he just takes it in strides and just slots it away like a striker, taking up kind of that striker role, or that striker space, I should say. And then the second goal, yes, it's a bit of icing on the cake, 90th minute, but a depth chip finish from somebody. That to me is a guy who's fully informed and confident to take that chip and execute it the way he did, which again bodes well for Toronto seeing another player that's on loan who could be, bought as an option player at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's two, like you said, skilled plays. The first one, I mean, it obviously seems like it's an easy chance. It's not. His first touch sets up his second. Without that first touch, with the ball kind of coming out you out of nowhere, it gets deflected. You're in stride. Your ability to take that touch, set up your second, like that's class. Second goal, I mean, Berna wants him to come to the ball,
Yeah.
and that obviously Berna actioning to come to the ball throws out defenders. Theo's still confident enough that he has the right run, still makes that right run, and then like you said, the finish. That's a number 9 finish right there. And
Yeah.
funny enough, he came on as a number 9. He was playing through the middle, and which is an interesting kind of wrinkle in sort of Theo Cormier's chapter with TFC. I mean, I really don't have a read on him as a player. He's shown glimpses that he can be a consistent nuisance for a team, like against Montreal in the Canadian Championship. I mean, he was lights out that game. I still don't know if he can consistently do that. Like, I still have very big question marks about his ability to consistently pick up the ball, drive at defenders, beat them, make the right play as well. I mean, you can get caught in that mindset and then try to take on 2-3 defenders, and whereas you should make a pass. I haven't seen too much out of that from him, but also I don't think I've seen enough of him driving at people, beating people 1v1. But you're right, the scoring touch is a very nice, let's call it a surprise. I don't expect him to score a goal or 2 goals every single game, but he has that in him. He has, if he's around the net, fairly confident that he'll be able to find the back of it. Even that first, I think it was his first or second game when he hit the post, might have been against Miami, when he hit the post like twice in the same match. Those were okay finishes. Like, they were confident strikes. So I'm comfortable with Corbeanu around front of goal, and I don't know, with Spicer coming through, like you mentioned off the bat, what's his role for this team? Is it on that left-hand side, or is he going to find more opportunity playing through the middle? Maybe giving Ula a rest here and there.
Yeah, I don't think it would. Who knows? I'm not a read as a 9. Like, I just don't. It doesn't read as 9 to me. His profile doesn't read as a 9. Like, I would question. Like, it just. I don't know. Like, I would want to see his hold up work with the ball.
For sure,
I do. Yeah, but I do like. Look, I like him on the left, right? And if it's a platoon situation with him and Spicer, or if it's he starts, Spicer comes on for him, vice versa in some games, I think that's a good problem to have for TFC. Now you've got some real danger down the left that you can tackle. Exactly, right? And then, albeit be remiss, I don't think we need to spend too much time on him, but I thought, again, Lorenzo Insigne I thought was good, right? I not necessarily a DP level good, but good enough that you weren't exactly a passenger out there, if that's the right. So that's just how I see it, right? Like, you're serviceable. He played with no, he didn't play the 90. Sorry, he did come off, but again, it's just one of those things where he's playing sort of in the middle, and he's kind of a bit free to do what he does. He probably should have had a goal in this game. He put one off the crossbar. Off of a great feed from Frederrico, but aside from that, right now he's kind of just being a good serviceable attacking player. Obviously, you expect more, but right now you're kind of getting what you're getting out of Lorenzo, and we'll see where that takes you once the transfer window opens up.
Exactly. We'll see where it takes Toronto FC. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have much to say. Like, it's what you expect at the bare minimum in a 7 or 6-1 game against a team that is 10 men, right? Exactly. I don't think he was anything special on the day. He was kind of just there for me, and yeah, and that's fine. That's fine in a 6-1 game. You don't need to be the best player on the pitch or best player in the world, whatever it may be.
So then maybe here's a question for you. So look, it's a 6-1 win. It's on the road. The vibes are high. Everybody's happy. Does this matter? Like, in a sense that, like, yeah, like, yeah, does this, like, I mean, it's 6-1 again. It matters in terms of the standings, of course. Look, you put a little bit the distance between yourself and the bottom of the conference. Technically, you're only 6 points out of a playoff spot right now. If we're starting to kind of do a little bit of that at the moment. So your season's not dead and gone per se, but your wins this season, RSL, okay, questionable red card essentially gets you that win. RSL probably score if Diego Luna stays on the pitch. DC United are DC United. I'm still contending that TFC are better than DC United.
100%.
It's just that they have Christian Benteke and you don't. And he can steal you enough points to potentially vulture up the table, and Montreal, who are Montreal at the moment. So you're beating kind of teams, maybe aside from RSL, that you kind of should be beating.
Yeah.
What about everybody else? And again, does this really matter at all in terms of the overall picture of TFC?
Listen, a 6-1 victory is a feeling this team damn needed. Like, they needed to feel 6 goals. And, we talked about some of the individual moments, like the Ula getting his first goal for Toronto FC, Berna finding the back of the net twice, their solid game from Sean Johnson. I mean, yeah, this game absolutely matters. Doing this against a rival on the road, it absolutely matters, and it gives you all that confidence in the world heading into 3 very important games at home. I mean, they got Nashville coming up, who's a very, very, very strong team. I believe Nashville's unbeaten in their last 5, 3 of their last 5 wins.
Drew DC on the weekend.
I know BJ Callahan wasn't too pleased with that. They have Philadelphia, and then they have Charlotte. All 3 games are at home, right? They need a response at BMO Field. So having that 6-1 win with some of the individual performances, I mean, that's really important ahead of the international break. Like, it's with everything that's gone wrong so far for Toronto FC, they are still just 6 points back of the playoffs, right? They have lost what it means to play at BMO Field, if that makes sense. Like, there's no longer that special feeling. There's no longer that, BMO Field is a fortress. There's no longer, oh my God, team coming into BMO Field, it's going to be scary. No, this is an opportunity to rebuild some of that. And they do that by going out and going against 3 tough teams and trying to put in a shift, put in a performance. So it's too early to write this team off completely. It's too early to write players off completely. I think this whole first, let's call it, quarter of the season has been, we learned a lot about this team, aside from the fact that they were very, very bad the first quarter of the season. I don't know. I really don't know what exactly this team is. Are they close to the showings against the, RSL, Montreal, DC, or are they more of the New England team? I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. You talk about sort of, and I'm just looking at the upcoming matches before the break here, and you're talking about 3 teams, all of them in a playoff spot, all of them pretty solid squads. And you ask, can they piece together some results at home and kind of get the vibe back at BMO Field? And I just look at this and I still say no.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I
logic.
think that's fair.
Yeah, I think logic tells you it's a no, but who knows, right? Like, if you get a decent performance against Nashville, right, you ride the high off a 6-1 win, right? I don't know. Even if it's a 1-0 smash and grab, right? Like, I almost think the vibe for a home 1-0, you know, the field's tilted 70-30 in Nashville's favor, and you smash one and get away with it. Like, that gives you a good vibe, and then you see what you can do. I mean, Philadelphia right now.
Drink the Kool-Aid. Let's go, Mike. Let's drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, you know, and then Charlotte, I don't know, right?
Look what Roma did last season.
Yeah,
this season. From relegation zone to 5th with a shot at the Champions League TFC need a run like that. That's where we're at. Fans have some hope. Gord's saying, what gives me hope is Berneski not getting cards like last year. He needs to be in the lineup for a chance, and he needs to stay disciplined and lead on the pitch, which I think is absolutely true. I mean, we do have to give some credit to Berneski, like how he was able to stay sane through these first 10, 11 games. I keep saying 10. I don't even know how many games it has been so far. But through this first stretch of the season is bizarre. I mean, we've seen him lose it on a lot less in the past. And maybe he's just used to the fact that, this is going to be the reality of what playing for Toronto FC is. But I mean, if he's able to actually stay committed and buy in and, put in a performance here and there like he did on Saturday, I mean, is it unrealistic to say that this team can sneak into the playoffs?
Well, look, I think all of us in our preseason predictions had TFC outside of the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think you had them just missing, I think. No, did you have them low? Did you have them like, we should revisit that. I think you had them like maybe like 11th or something like that. And I picked 12th.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And like, I still think that's what TFC ultimately are. I think they're 11th, 12th place team. They're not the worst team in the league, even though fans, we can get to that hyperbole about that. But I also I look at the teams that are above them in the table right now, and I'm thinking like, who's dropping? Like, who are they going to replace in that table?
So DC,
right? I look at the
DC is one, right?
Well, right now, like, okay, let's look at the team. Okay, yeah, Chicago, Charlotte, NYCFC in 7th, Inter Miami, Orlando 5th, Nashville 4th, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia so far ahead. Like, that's not even.
I think that top 6 is set. That top 6 is going to be set. Despite how bad Inter Miami have looked, that top 6 is set. All 6 of those teams are getting in.
I don't disagree with you there. They'll swap and change in terms of where they are, but I don't disagree with you there. 7 to 9. I mean,
10, 11. I mean, the Red Bulls are underperforming, which is surprising.
Yeah.
Atlanta's been
Darby.
A huge surprise.
Well, like, that's it, right? Like, if you look at the table, Montreal's bottom on 7.
Yeah.
Atlanta is 14th on 11. Toronto's 13th on 13. DC United, okay, you can reel in DC United potentially. I mean, you've already got blasted by New England. You've already got blasted by the Red Bulls. You already got blasted by Chicago, right? So, and those are the teams ahead of you. Chicago's in 9th.
Yeah.
So,
look, let me ask it this way: that team that showed up against New England, Toronto FC, obviously.
Yeah.
How different do you think? Like, they've rebounded, they've responded. I think we can say that. I think
that's fair.
It's so important for them to do this, and so easy for them not to. But they did, and we got to give them credit for that, right? To put in a 6-1 win after some demoralizing defeats, even that 2-0 win against DC. Those are responses that this team needed, and they were able to do that, regardless of whoever the opponent is. How different is this team than the 2-0 demoralizing loss to New England?
Slightly. I mean, you got you got Ula off the Schneid, and he's on the scoreboard, so that's great. Yeah. You get 2 more goals for Theo. The confidence is high. Spicer's got a goal. His confidence is high. Berneski, right? Like, got his goals. Maybe his form's about to pick up. So maybe slightly different. My question, though, is still like, you clearly can show that you can compete and beat teams that should conceivably be worse than
100%.
you. Can you actually? Yeah, exactly. Can you make the step up to take on teams that are equally or slightly better than you?
Well, we talk about that Corbeanu and Tyrese Spicer competitiveness, right? Competition on that left-hand side. You have Oso coming back into the mix. Now all of a sudden you have Maxi Dominguez and Davy Flores, who, by the way, is undroppable at this point.
Yes, at this point, yes. Yeah.
Like, what a player he's been for Toronto FC so far this season. You talk about that mentality. I mean,
Gonna miss him when he's at the Gold Cup.
Yes, absolutely. But I mean, look, Richie Larea, speaking of the Gold Cup, Richie Larea is getting healthy, right? He should be back by the end of the month. Raul Petretta, let's see what happens. Could have him back in the mix. He's had an okay start to the season, right? Now we have, looking at the squad, it's a little bit more respectable, right? There's some more depth there than I think that we've always that we've seen in the past from Toronto FC.
For point towards.
Like, I guess what I'm getting to is the performance on Saturday. While I don't expect it to always be 6-1 or anywhere close to that moving forward, can we see this version of Toronto FC moving forward? Can we see Toronto FC at home be confident on the ball with that attacking trio of Insigne, Ula Brynholzen, and Bernardeschi, especially if you add Tyrese Spicer as maybe a fourth in that mix? That's not a bad attacking trio, not a bad attacking four. Davy Flores behind them, that's not bad. We've seen Sigurd Rosted and Kevin Long start to settle in, I guess is the best way to say it. They're no longer just relied on to make some heroic plays, and it now looks a lot more unified in a lot of aspects. We talked about the way they've improved the defense. Even that disappointing game against Cincinnati, you're still only letting in kind of one goal there. Kosi Thompson selling on the right hand side. Like, can we see a evolution of this team where they get closer to more of that Montreal than that New England, I guess is what I'm getting to. And I don't know the answer to that, because I'm with you. Like, let's see exactly what this team looks like against decent competition, and then we can start talking about them a little bit more seriously. But I think it's hard not to be optimistic after a 6-1 winning away against CF Montreal.
Fair enough. And let's leave it at that for two reasons. Yep. One, let's leave on a vibe. And two, my battery's going to die. But but really quickly, Smith Viz asks, will 114 / all the SGs be back Saturday? Good question. I don't know. But I would say this. Saturday, they gave you a 6-1 performance. You're coming off it. I get there's a lot of legitimate complaints out there from supporters about the team, about. And
I think it's even bigger than what's on the pitch too, right?
No, 100. It's almost not exclusively off the pitch, but right. A lot of it has to do with the front office. It has a lot to do with MLSC as an organization in general and how supporters and fans are treated. And I get, and all of those points are still valid. They're going to remain. A 6-1 win doesn't change any of that. I would say, however, if there's a time where let's put it this way. The FA Cup final, Crystal Palace Man City this weekend, reminded me a bit of why football is so beautiful and why we're fans of it. And we go and you buy your tickets and you watch even when the teams are bad, because it makes the I've said it on the show a ton of times, right? Winning MLS Cup, going to the finals for the first time, getting all the way to a Champions League final, those moments aren't as great and as memorable without all of the crap that came before it. I'm not saying you have to sit there and take all the crap all the time. I'm just saying that sometimes you got to go through some things to then get to the good times. And I'm not saying they're imminent, right? But we're going to leave on a vibe, and we're going to say, like, hey, bring it on Saturday as fans, as supporters. I think you can support the guys on the pitch and with your voices and with your songs and with your banners, without necessarily it being a support of front office or of MLSC in total. And I think that would be a big thing for Saturday and a big win for Saturday. So I don't know if all the supporter groups are coming back, but I'll be there Saturday, and I'm gonna sing some songs and drink some beers and have a good time.
There we go. And let's see it. And hey, we're wrapping up the show while it's still bright out, which means summertime is right here. And even though it's been a miserable stretch, there's not many places better in the summer than BMO Field on a warm summer evening or
Absolutely.
summer afternoon. So
absolutely. No more afternoon games. I think it's all evening for the rest of the season.
Until the end of the season.
But until the end, like the last game of the season. Yeah,
it was fun.
All right,
those afternoon games were fun. Well,
they were. It was nice to have some afternoon games again. Hopefully, they keep that around going forward. All right. Well, thank you for listening to another Toronto Till I Die, everybody. We really appreciate all the comments. We do see them. Thank you so much. Little community in there having a conversation. If you're watching this, look, you know where to find us on YouTube. But if you're new here, find us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the thumbs up on the video. Really appreciate it. And of course, if you're listening to this on the next day or the days after on podcast, wherever you can do a review or drop a few stars for us, we really do appreciate that as well. For Michael Singh, I'm Michael Newell. We'll see you next week. Cheers, everybody. Bye.
Peace.
And wait, and baby, I'm TFC till I die.